Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Performance Engineering and Value to Technology. Today's webinar is brought to you by Vivid Performance Engineering Special Interest Group. And here are Performance Engineering SIG leaders, Todd DeCapia, Chris Trimper, Petar Piskarich, and Paul Shovlin. Sorry if I messed up any of your names. And our panelists today, hi, I'm Paul Shovlin. I'm going to be the moderator today. I'm a Florida Vivid chapter leader. I have over 20 years experience in software quality assurance, and I currently lead an independent performance testing team at the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also have Petar Piskarich. He is an all-around technology and performance expert. Prior performance engineering leader of testing center of excellence at one of the largest North American insurance companies. And Petar is currently the Kevin Durant of the performance engineering free agent market. That means he is the most highly sought after free agent out there right now. So if you're looking for someone top notch, he's your guy, although I have to warn you, there's a lot of competition out there, a lot of big market teams, I think, out there seeking his expertise. Today we also have Tom Horsfield. He has 20 years experience in the performance testing and software development industry. Tom is passionate about the purpose of testing and performance testing in particular. He is a HP accredited systems engineer in LoadRunner version 12, and he's been gracefully married for 21 years and counting, and father of 3. And last but not least, Mr. Tim Nichols, over 35 years of broad industry experience, almost 20 as a performance engineer, the last 13 with Checkpoint Technologies. Tim also has vast programming and VBA knowledge. His deep interest in the minutia of data. He prefers WinSock to web. He loves programming in C and flying experimental aircraft. So yeah, Tim's an avid pilot, and he's a slave to 3 charming kittens. All right. So for those of you who may be new, we have monthly SIG meetings. The second Tuesday of every month. At the top of this slide, we have a link to our initial blog, and we also have links to the previous blogs where you can get access to slide decks and video replays and the polling results. And we also note here all the upcoming webinars and the dates. Give you just a chance to check those out, but this slide deck will be available on the Vivid SharePoint page, and I'll go over those, I'm sorry, not SharePoint, our Vivid page, and I'll go over those locations in a second here. We're always looking for panelists. It's never too early to sign up. While the webinars are planned for the rest of the year, we're still looking for panelists. If you haven't already, please go to our speaker survey link. This slide deck, as I mentioned, will be available along with previous presentations. But please find that speaker survey and fill it out. We're always looking for new panelists to come and share their knowledge. This slide deck will be emailed as well. Some quick housekeeping. Today's live session is intended for all Vivid members. The recording will be posted in the webinar section on the Vivid site, visible for all members. It's also going to be available on the Performance Engineering SIG group pages site, as well as Bright Talk channel, if you're familiar with that. Additionally, today's slide deck and webinar recording will be emailed to you via, the link will be emailed once it's available out on the website. If you have any questions as we go along, please type them and send them in using the questions panel in the webinar control panel, questions pane. Sorry about the choppiness on those slides there. Here's a picture of the go-to webinar control panel that usually appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Submit a question. Make sure the questions pane is expanded and type in your question and click on send. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today's agenda. As our panelists walk through their real-world examples, you'll hear common goals such as reducing production incidents, satisfying end users, organizational and business champions, building performance into features from the beginning, and delivering quality throughout the life cycle. Tim and Tom are going to focus more on team dynamic success stories, and Patar is going to focus more on specific technologies with examples on how they may be leveraged for success in achieving the aforementioned goals. So how many times have you sat and waited for an application and thought, was any performance engineering done for this? The example may have been in January when they had the largest Powerball drawing in history. I bet many of you were trying to check the winning numbers. Well, no, most of you probably knew better than to jump on the site at the time of the drawing, knowing how overloaded the system will be. One of our colleagues actually ran a script against the site, and the response times were, as you would expect, through the roof. Now, do you think that user experience is going to prevent you from buying a Powerball ticket the next time the drawing's that large? No, because we're still going to buy those tickets. It's all about supply and demand. However, if you're shopping online and have a similar experience making a purchase, are you likely to return to that site? No. Will you tell others of your experience? Yeah, probably. And will they shop there? No, not likely. Our esteemed panelists are going to share some of their real-world experiences, and hopefully these examples can help you market performance engineering to your organization. But first, a topical performance engineering challenge arose recently. Perhaps some of you noticed. Yes, Pokemon Go is not available. Hopefully they have a representative attending this webinar. All right. We have a first polling question before we get rolling. What is most challenged? Sorry?
Well, I didn't know if you wanted me to read through the polling questions.
Sure. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead, Tom.
So this is polling question number 1. My name is Todd DiCaprio. Thank you for allowing me to join, Paul. In this polling question, just take a few moments here. What is most challenging to your organization? Please just select one of the below 4 options. Preventing production incidents. Number 2 is end user satisfaction. Number 3 is performance engineering not getting involved early enough. Or number 4, the lack of internal business champions for performance engineering. And again, I see this as a great question, and especially in light of a few different things. And Paul, you mentioned Pokemon Go, which I don't know how many of you have seen from a business perspective the impact of that, but upwards of, just in 2 days trading, $7.5 billion in additional market share and over 33% increase in the stock value, all for Nintendo. So again, as we think about performance engineering and the value to the technology teams, this is one question for you to consider. What is most challenging to your organization? So again, if we could close the poll and let's see the results. Excellent. So as we look at these results together, what we can see is the majority was actually split between preventing production incidents and lack of internal business champions for performance engineering. Those tied at 33%, and followed by PE not getting involved early enough at 22%, and last is end user satisfaction at 11%. Paul, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back over to you. I think this might be a good time to engage our panelists and get their thoughts on maybe why these results coming back from those participating in our question.
Great Great idea, Todd. Thank you. Panelists, any initial thoughts at the with the results of the polling question?
Well, I had a surprise the end user satisfaction was so low. Usually we want to make sure our customers are happy in their experience. That was a surprise to me.
I'm with you, Tim, but since we don't get to feel that as much, we don't in the performance testing and engineering holes that we live in, but we definitely feel it when a production incident occurs and all of a sudden leaders are into us, and we definitely feel it when we don't have champions for what we're doing. So it actually kind of makes sense to me.
And I totally agree with that across my career. Yeah, thanks for bringing that part up. Having that evangelist and even the business support for PE is basically crucial, because I guess I'd say a lot of us across our careers have seen it where performance engineering was a grassroots effort from the bottom up, and then we had to gain the top-down support and respect. So I think a lot of it is still in flux across different organizations, and hopefully that's changing in the recent past and recent future coming up. So actually there's some more, I guess, vision around performance engineering at that organizational level. It's very, very well needed.
Great inputs, guys. So we'll go ahead and move along, and hopefully we'll be able to address some of these challenges you're having in the next 45 minutes or so. So Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you. Take it away,
Thanks,
Tom.
Thanks. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. This is Tom. I'd like to discuss a real-world performance test success story using this performance thought model that I've been developing over the last decade, and it's still definitely in development. I like being able to see the big picture, so hopefully this trio makes sense of we're working for the business, making good software, and so what in the world does performance engineering contribute to this quest? And why should VPs of IT and those teams care about that? Paul, if we could see what's next. And so in this context, the ultimate goal is to deliver value to the business and to the customer. The classic, again, with the end in mind. The success story I had in mind was with a digital asset management tool, which was to allow digital creatives to work with their professional photography and video. And we needed to make sure that they had the system that would serve their needs. Next slide, if you will, sir. I heard this trio of revenue, brand, and competitive advantage from Dan Booten, who's been active in our industry for quite a while. It's easier to think of it first when we think of online shopping or online travel like Amazon or eBay or TripAdvisor and so on. Revenue is all about today. Do we get the transactions through? Are we going to pass or fail? And as Paul referred to, if it's slow, people will abandon and we won't get that revenue today. And if we pass or fail, they'll talk. They'll tell friends and family. They'll put it out on social media, and it affects our brand. And in the same way, competitive advantage is critical because if our site is twice as slow as another or twice as fast, that's going to draw and keep. So when we think of what we're doing for the business, this really makes sense. This application that I was working on, these digital professional assets, it was internal, so it wasn't so much about revenue and brand and so on, but it was about satisfaction for our digital creatives. It's about the brand of the technology organization and the business unit that we were collaborating with. And our users aren't stupid, so if they heard about colleagues in the industry that had better solutions, they would get pretty irate and disappointed with our internal IT teams. And so in a sense, we would lose business internally and reputation internally. So I think we're ready for the next poll, Paul. Which I guess means Todd.
Todd, yeah, Todd, hey, you can...
Thank you very much, Tom.
Up.
So as you can see here, here's polling question number 2. This is a select all that apply, so you can select as many that are relevant for your response. But why do you see performance engineering as important for your organization? 4 options are out there for you, kind of following on what Tom was just covering in his little table of revenue, brand value, competitive advantage, or customers, both acquisition and retention. So please go ahead and just take a few minutes, or actually hopefully we'll close this out in about 45 seconds. Again, why do you see performance engineering as important for your organization? Check as many as you would like. So revenue, brand value, competitive advantage, and customers, acquisition, and retention. I do find it interesting, Tom, when you were covering your slide under brand, how future dollars is a huge driver, and really social media was something else that you had highlighted. I think more and more it seems to be an impact in the marketplace. So hopefully everybody has had a chance to respond. Let's go ahead and close out this poll if we could, please. And we'll have a look at the results here together. And we do have a tie again. So at 70%, again, remember this is a reply all or select as many as you would like. So there, when we look at these responses, what I'm seeing is an overwhelming number of you said both revenue and competitive advantage as why performance engineering is important, 70%. And then at 60% is customers, both acquisition and retention, and 50% at brand value. So with that, Paul, I'll hand it back over to you to see maybe what the expert panel thinks about these responses.
Thank you, Todd. Anybody have a take on the results of this poll?
Well, certainly business is driven by revenue, so that would most likely be the huge driver there. You know, without money coming in, business isn't going to survive. So you gotta make sure that we've got a clear path to bringing in the dollars. So, and you know, that's 2 sides of the same coin. Competitive advantage, being able to keep your customers happy by giving them a good, strong, solid end user experience on the website. So definitely want to make sure we're keeping the website strong and useful to the end user.
I'm going to ask a question. Considering this question was select all that apply, is anyone surprised some of those numbers aren't higher than what they are?
Depending on the industry, I would have expected possibly brand value being a little higher as well. And that's the only one that really surprised me. That was actually the lowest practically. But yeah, that's the only surprising one. And definitely my experience being out here in Silicon Valley for the last 1.5 years or so definitely goes when I'd say, you know, that revenue and competitive advantage are both key. But I'd say the competitive advantage theme is definitely a lot stronger on the West Coast, it appears, than I was used to in the Midwest, where brand value seemed to be more the higher driver performance in the Midwest. So that's one of the little things that stuck out to me.
Interesting. All right. Back to Tom.
So for a little bit of real life and humor, as we know, competition is everywhere. Some of you may know that on July 4th, Nathan's held its International Hot Dog Competitive Eating Contest. And it just absolutely cracked me up that there right in front of us was counts per minute, which is what we as performance engineers are always looking at. Transactions per second, transactions per minute. And here once again, throughput is king. Everybody knows Joey Chestnut's name, at least those who care about this crazy competition. Next slide, Paul, please. So we talked about what does the business need, and so what kind of qualities do we need to make sure that are in software, and how do we contribute to that? So looking at what's next, Paul. One way I've thought about thinking about what makes sense as far as software or any tool is a transatlantic airliner, where that airliner definitely needs to be strong enough if it's supposed to carry 200, 300, or 400 passengers and all its payload. In the same way, our systems have to support the occupancy that they're going to get, otherwise we're in trouble. Our systems need to be fast enough. Transatlantic flight takes about 7 hours these days. If we brought something out that took 21 hours, people would laugh and they wouldn't come and use our tools. And in the same way, it needs to be durable. That plane needs to make it all the way across the puddle. If it needs to reboot halfway, we got big problems. In the same way, our business applications need to stay up, whether it's a business day or over across the entire Black Friday to Cyber Monday weekend or whatever that duration is. Our system needs to be able to sustain the load. So back to my practical example of digital asset management with the professional photography and video, we ran tests and we found that it was not strong enough. At future peak loads, the application server box literally pegged at 100%, locked up there, and the only way to recover was to reboot that application server. And so we knew we were in trouble. So we're okay, Paul, on the slides. Actually, I think we're about to move to the next one. So what do we do? What did we do for that team? And so if we jump to the next, we can look at the categories that this model has helped me think about what we do for our partners. In the left-hand column, there's the triplet of certify, purify, and amplify. And so the whole idea of certify is like when you're working with crash test dummies and you have a test, the 5-mile-an-hour bumper is supposed to do so much, etc. So in the same way for our digital asset system, we discovered the workload that it needed to support and the performance, the response times and whatnot, and we definitely found that it was a no-go. It would not succeed. So we dropped down into purify mode. We zeroed in on discovering which transactions were the guilty parties were, if you will, and if you think of a golf professional, looking at the person's swing, breaking it down, is it the backswing, is it the follow-through? So in the same way, we identified where the challenges were, we built specific workloads, we were able to reproduce the problem over and over again. We engaged the vendor, they got online with us, watched what happened, gathered logs, went back, built a patch, sent it to us within a day or two. We reran our focused load, demonstrated that the bug was resolved. Then we were able to move back into certify mode, if you will, ran the full load, and now we had confidence that we were in a go state rather than a no-go state. And just to touch on the amplify idea, at the same time, we recommended that to right-size the environment to train our system, we felt that an app server focused, a virtual machine focused on doing the app server work was the right thing, because that box was doing two things. The IT business decided not to follow that, which is fine, because we all make recommendations, and for whatever reason they have to make their choices. And but the good news is we're able to support bringing a strong and fast and durable application to market. Next slide, Paul. And so that is the picture of what we're talking about. And with this model, you can adjust it, because today's conversation is how does performance test and engineering serve the technology team. And so if you look at the center of the slide, the technologies team is responsible to bringing that software to market. And so that's how we serve them. And so if they know, if they realize how important it is that their system doesn't just have the right functions, but it also needs to be strong and fast and so on, then they realize the value of what we bring to the table. And so with that, Todd, I think we're ready for our next poll.
Great, thank you very much, Tom. And yes, this is polling question number 3. As you can see, you're going to be asked to select one of these choices. We can go ahead and prompt the poll now. What is the focus of your performance engineering organization? Is it certify? So is this the go, no-go, looking specifically at things like candidate trials that Tom was explaining, or is it more certify, purify, collaborative pursuit of bugs or defects, or is it more certify, purify, and amplify? So again, is this the proper system sizing, thinking about things like capacity, maybe some resiliency, and then number 4, none. What is a performance engineering organization? And if you've participated in enough of these, we tend to throw in that funny one every once in a while, but unfortunately this is maybe a few responses we will get today. So please go ahead and select one of these options as to what is the focus of your performance engineering organization. So hopefully everybody has had a chance to vote. If we could go ahead and close out this poll, that would be great. And I am able to see the results. So I will share those with everyone. It looks like the majority, at 56%, are falling into the certify, purify, and amplify. So in thinking about things like system sizing and capacity planning as the focus for the performance engineering organization. Second is the certify, so just the go, no-go, and candidate trials at 33%. And third is actually at 11%, none. What is performance engineering? Nobody went with option 2, certify and purify. So again, 56% certify, purify, and amplify, 33% at certify, and 11 at none. What is a performance engineering organization? Paul, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. So, Tom, what do you think of these results? Is this what you were expecting, somewhere in the ballpark of what you're expecting?
Actually, not quite. I find it as good news because if people are if they're engaging teams like us to do the full gamut of our work, to include that amplify effort, that is really good news, because that first one is the classic. They throw it over the wall at us. We say yes or no, and then they do whatever they feel like. That's not very satisfying for anybody. And so it's really encouraging that that number 3, that they're engaging teams to do all, to say yes or no, to dig out bugs, and to help with capacity planning. I see it as good news.
Great, great. Move forward. We'll try to have some time to your questions. Thank you, Tom. We're going to go ahead and turn it over to Tim. Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, sir. Yep. So as Paul said, I'm Tim Nichols, and good morning, good evening, wherever you people may be. So my example, what I've been up to for the last several years, I just spent a year, this was back in 2003, I'd spent a year or so down in Brazil doing performance testing down there, and I'd gotten back and I had some time on my hands, and a friend of mine asked me to come over to one of his clients because they were working on sort of a proof of concept actually for LoadRunner back then for them, and they'd been banging their heads at this script that they'd made. It was actually a Delphi application, and you know, some of you may know that LoadRunner doesn't have, and I don't even know if Delphi has any sort of proprietary protocol, but in any case, what we got was a windsock script. That was really the only opportunity there, was for pure nuts and bolts windsock, and they just weren't able to make any headway on correlating the script and getting it to work properly. So I went in there, and as Paul mentioned, I really like that kind of thing, like the bits and the bytes and pushing the hex around. So it was old hat to me, and having said that, it did take me all day. And then at the end of the day, when I realized what my problem was. They sort of accused me of sandbagging and having them buy lunch for me. But anyway, we got it done pretty quickly, and after that, not only were they satisfied with that LoadRunner could do the job, but they also engaged us to stay on staff and more or less drive the performance testing practice. So it was a win-win for everybody, I thought, especially me, since I was then gainfully employed. So anyway, that went on for many years, and as it happened, it took a while for this client to move beyond the simple Delphi and actually begin to stand up web applications. So for quite a while, we were doing these WinSock scripts, and again, I enjoyed it, so I got to scratch my C programming itch and enjoy going to work every day. Meanwhile, if I wasn't actively doing performance testing, it was also training or exposing the other people that were already there to what LoadRunner was doing. You're good, Paul. And yeah, after that, we tried to do a little bit of evangelizing to the rest of the organization, but mostly it stayed with us, the performance testing professionals, to do the performance testing, and it didn't actually end up becoming something that everybody did. So there's that. So I tried my hand at training, but it just didn't take. In any case, after I'd say about 4 or 5 years, the client did begin to stand up a lot more websites for their legacy applications, kind of transitioning from the older technology to state-of-the-art, more or less. And one day, got a call early in the week, and the guy I worked for said, hey, there's this really hot project that is going to be rolled out, and guess what? They just now realize that they should make sure that it's going to perform before they turn up the application and let their customers loose on it. And I said, okay, how much time do I have? And he goes, not surprisingly, yeah, at the end of the week, Friday. Well, before I was in this client, my experience was as a LoadRunner consultant, I'd go into some place and do something in a week and leave on Friday. You know, I'd arrive Monday and leave on Friday. So that was old hat to me. So of course I told him, yep, no problem, I can get that done. And so got to actually do this quickie turnaround testing. And the reason it's important to me was that for those previous 5 years or so, everything in this organization was very solid, very by the book, by the numbers, do it this way. You have a very definite set of steps that you have to perform in order to go through, which quite understandably made the whole entire performance testing effort drag out. And as I knew, we could do it in a week.
So, hey, Tim, I hope you don't mind me interjecting. Just want to make note that the client was a federal government client.
There you go. So no surprise there. So anyway, as I got to do this quickie test here, I got to do something outside of our normal test lab, outside of our normal day-to-day operations. And because I got to work with people in a whole other data center, across the country, got to meet all those folks and interact with them and find out there's this whole other group of people out there that are pretty cool and really know what they're doing, and it's really cool to work with them. So I enjoyed that. But more importantly, we got to show that LoadRunner, when called upon, could do this quick test and produce results and get them the information that they needed to have. So that's what we did, and I think on the next slide there may be some explanation of that. So I'm running the performance tests, and got all the people and the databases and the app servers and web servers. They're all the system admins are sitting around watching their respective components, so that when the user load was cranked up, they could begin to see what was going to happen to their system under load. And there were quite a number of opportunities for correcting situations, opportunities to correct situations. So that was really cool. And of course, that at the end of the day, the application went out the door, and it didn't have any problems in production whatsoever. So based on that, the customer, the client, was able to see that we can do this. We can do this quickly, and clearly, performance testing is a really good thing, and we should use this performance testing whenever possible. And that's what began to happen. Suddenly we had almost more work than we could handle, but as Paul noted, it was federal, so it's very well organized, and a lot of this work would just be stacked up, and we'd get to it when we could get to it. So where that's left us, and Paul, I guess you can go on to the next one. What's happened since then is that we've become even more formal over the years. And in fact, now our testing organization is based on an evaluation of every application that is going to go or attempting to go through to production. We evaluate them in terms of risk to the organization, do a criticality analysis and risk assessment for all of the actual requirements that the system has. And based on the level of risk, we'd assign values to those requirements in terms of minimum, medium, or high risk. And if it scores sufficiently high, we'd end up recommending that it be tested, whether that be performance tested or functionally tested, or just simply review what they've done in their own testing, just to put another set of eyes on it. And the organization is an ongoing, continuing, business as it were. So there's no end to these projects in sight. What have we done? Over the last 5 years, I think it's there on the screen. We've evaluated over 250 applications to date, and like I say, there's no end to how this process can provide stability to the production environments based on our inspection of the applications before they get anywhere near production. So we think that we're doing a pretty good job here for this client. And as I look back on my years here, I can say that we're sort of here because of that one little afternoon that I spent there figuring out that WinSock script. And I can kind of look back on that proudly and say that I had a little bit of a hand in getting this whole thing going. I think that takes us to polling question number 4.
Great, thank you very much. Your insight is greatly appreciated, and I think that grassroots example and starting with this very small WinSock seed is maybe ways that some of these things in the performance engineering space happen. So let's go ahead and poll our participants today. Do you feel that your organization needs a similar grassroots effort in order to get organizational buy-in? And again, please select one of the options. we're going to keep this really simple. So it's either yes or no, or not to that degree, but organizational visibility is definitely lacking. So again, please take a moment, select one of these, and when you're completed, we'll go ahead and close it out. We'll leave it open for another 10 seconds or so as we try to get everyone to participate again here. You guys have been great, actually, in responding. And let's go ahead and close it out. All right. Well, thank you all for participating. Hopefully you can see the results in front of you. If you're not able to, let me read them off. 50% of the people who responded said that not to that degree, but organizational visibility is lacking, then followed by 38% at no and 13% at yes. So Paul, I will go ahead and turn it back over to you to get some thoughts from the expert panel on these results.
Great. Thank you, Todd. Tim, any initial thoughts to the results of this, Paul?
Just that there are companies, organizations out there that are just getting started still. In, 2016, we've been doing this for almost 15 years or more, and that there's still opportunities for performance testing. Just because, for whatever reason, either they're startups or, I guess, you think of the large organizations that are out there and assume that they've got to be doing performance testing. So that leaves, like I said, the startups that are just getting going that haven't yet begun to either have the time or the budget to do performance testing. So there are opportunities out there to get started on the ground floor in performance testing.
And not only that, but within organizations, as we all know, there are organizational changes constantly. We're going through one at our major client where project teams don't have to come to us for our services. We know some will due to their experiences, but we also need to go ahead and find more additional business teams as champions, more project teams to tout our the successes we've helped them achieve through our services. So due to an organizational change, we're going back through this on how to market ourselves and who can help us out. Picard, Tom, you have any other thoughts on the results?
Yeah, I guess going along with what was just said there, I guess fitting the performance testing and or performance engineering into those performance, I guess not performance, but rather the agile life cycles is almost crucial at this point for like the larger enterprises in order to basically ensure the fact that performance isn't optional anymore. For those groups that can get that, well, that visibility and buy-in into the process and be inserted into that agile process, it's a huge win for the quality of the applications and the performance of the infrastructure as well. And then the other piece I wanted to add in was that also for the startups, what's interesting that I found recently is that from a startup mindset, performance basically it appears to be just assumed, and that the coding reflects that. And there seems to be very little regard for the infrastructure that supports that code base, which is generally perceived as spotless and golden. So I've had some interesting conversations with a few different startup groups, and just seeing their reactions when I'd say, well, have you considered this? Have you considered that? It's like, oh, wait a minute. We might not be able to scale as fast as we thought we could. So that was one of the things to see there. So yeah, so I guess doing the performance engineering side from the grassroots efforts, I think is a good thing to start, but then definitely needs to be taken over as an overarching program at some point. And that moves from that startup into an enterprise level, somewhere in between.
Yeah, great input, Qatar. But hey, we're up against the clock, so we'll go ahead and transition Over to you, Pitar. Thank you, Tim.
Okay, so when I was looking at this particular webinar, I was taking a look at the fact that we have the CIOs and CTOs of the world and looking at their technology teams and what the technology teams are actually up against bringing, and then how performance testing and performance engineering would be handling these relatively new technologies coming at us. And the first one that I was looking at was the rise of HTTP2. And essentially, yeah, what is this thing? Well, it's a new HTTP protocol that is changing a lot of things, I think, for the good, but has some downsides for some of the tuning and having to relearn stuff. But basically what we've got is a single channel HTTP socket that basically handles everything for your page loading. It's pretty neat to watch 300, 400 different little GIFs all rapidly basically saturate a single socket across your pipe. About 2 months ago, I worked with another performance engineer to do some testing against different implementations of HTTP2, and we were looking at the differences on, say, an Apache web server configured for it as well as an Nginx server. And, well, maybe not surprisingly enough, the differences between the implementations were actually pretty minor. But it turned out that it was more of the testing tool that needed to be changed in order to get it to work right and record. So if you're looking at Performance Center or Load Runner, the 12.5.3 implementations, there are 2 patch files that you will need to download from HP in order to get proper recording in those environments. And see, the change for performance engineering, it's more of looking at tuning differently for your servers. In this case, it's going to be, instead of optimizing your servers across, say, multiple simultaneous connections per page on the front ends, you're looking at one per user or virtual user in this case. But the weirdness comes in the fact that because it's a single pipe, the resources are linear, and you have to account for the, I guess, the organization and prioritization of the resources on that pipe. So you want to get the main, say, HTML page down first, and it has a higher priority. Then you have, say, your style sheets that fly in, and then the actual resources behind it. If some of those are left at default, your page can actually be slower, even though it's using the much more advanced HTTP stack. One of the other challenges in how to, I guess, incorporate it into your testing is the fact that HTTP2 is a binary protocol. So there we go. Now we're moving all the way back to almost WinSock levels in our scripts. So you really do need to have the tooling that can actually see inside those packets because it's going to be binary encoded. So VUGen does a great job in de-binarying, for lack of a better word there, for you. And as far as a use case example of that, basically what we ran across, if you're looking at, let's say Google is a supporter and user of HTTP2, and as well as Facebook. And that's an interesting one if you want to go out and do a test recording against Facebook and see how that's actually put together. There are plugins available for your different browsers, Chrome, Firefox, that you can download, and it'll tell you when you're actually on an HTTP2 supporting page. And then you can use the developer tools from there to actually see, how they're implementing it and what are their prioritization schedules. And then we can go to the next one. And that's going to be network virtualization. And that's one of my fun topics from way back in the Shunra days, actually. And basically, you're looking at you're virtualizing network situations, degradations in real time. Whether you're looking at multiple streams coming in for your application, multiple pathways. One of the other neat things, there are some products on the market now that basically it's not just the, let's say, the latency values applied to your pathways and looking at how your application uses them, but it also can set up multiple routes doing VPN chaining. And that's going to be a popular one coming up probably in the next year or two as more and more software-defined networking takes over the data center space. There's some really neat things that you can do there where you have distributed endpoints that all look like one particular LAN. And then, you know, where does that fit into performance engineering? Well, that's where we have to come back and say, our application, what kind is it? Is it a cloud-based service? Is it a mobile, primarily mobile use app, or back to regular desktop enterprise kind of thing? Mobile is taking over more and more, as we all know. So network virtualization will pop in there more and more, and it's a great feature of Performance Center and Load Runner, where you can set up those cases. And you want to, you know, simulate your, say, 30 users coming out of London over some kind of European cell carrier. It has certain latency, it has a certain jitter applied to it, which would totally be different than coming out of, say, an AT&T, an iOS kind of simulation off a cell phone. You can set all that up. Using that particular type of testing within your group basically can help lead to well, actually, it's a lot higher quality for your end users, because then you already know how slow or how fast this stuff actually might work. Or if you have to go back and refactor the application in order to actually even exist on some of these mobile networks, where the latency and some of the connection time setups really play into the experience. Use cases and examples. For this particular one, I would really, really hope that Pokemon Go and their parent company there that created the back ends and the base technology did some of this, so they could see the effect of those particular longer running calls coming out of mobile affecting their in-use threads on their servers. How does it affect the web services calls, or even some of the microservice kind of things that they're doing? Yeah, another use case, actually, well, way back in the day when one of my previous employers was doing a Super Bowl ad campaign, they never really knew how the front end would affect things. So we had one of the products what basically became network virtualization through HP. We modeled essentially 3 T1s on the front end, and basically another 45 megabits side link that they had as secondarily that they could actually purchase for the event. So we actually tied all 4 of those links together, ran the performance tests through it at about 80,000 virtual users, and we actually watched what happened on those pipes. And then we were able to actually tweak some front-end web servers and move some different things around geographically with CDN, and things worked out wonderful. But doing that actual testing with it exposed a lot of network issues that they never even thought they were going to have. So next one. All right, one of my latest topics of choice, Internet of Things. It's a hot topic, and what does it do? There are lots of definitions around Internet of Things, but to me, essentially, Internet of Things is basically, it's just endpoint data coming in from many and multitudes of internet-capable devices, all providing one or more data streams as to their state. And that's just the front end. And then you take that data and you're doing data collection and then analysis, and then in some cases feedback and recommendations. So it's kind of like having essentially a real-time performance test. The infrastructure is there. You get analysis kind of like we do for regular performance tools, and but you're doing it live production and it's sustained. And that, I think, is the real big deal that IoT has in performance engineering, is that we're not looking for just static load and looking at rising fall, the standard double horn pattern at 10 a.m., 2 p.m. across the different user bases, looking at major spikes and whatnot. But now we're really having to start to look at sustained load as all these devices really don't ever turn off. So the thread comes up and they're constantly hitting at some transaction per second at times. I've seen some endpoints that are generating on the order of 200 streams, basically 200 stream bits of data per second. It's just amazing. How do you incorporate that into your testing? Honestly, there's not much change here except to look at your workload modeling and make sure that you've got your disparate endpoints, the data streams coming from them, included in your test, and to keep them very, very active. Use case example. For this one, basically, I'd say we had a small homegrown IoT system that we created, and yeah, we basically, I don't know, released it to a working DeepMind, and then we noticed that, wow, the oxygen sensors and the other carbon monoxide sensors, strain gauges, and that kind of stuff really actually did put out more data than we really were planning for. So we had to find ways to mitigate using basically a half T1 connection, but we were able to get that upgraded, and that solved that problem. All right, and then I think we have one more. Converged infrastructure. That's basically what I've come across as when you're looking at primarily around the network space. So now you've got SAN traffic for your storage blocks and your network all living on the same Ethernet or fiber channel kind of technologies, and you're converging them together. So it's no more coming out of the back of the chassis with multiple connections. It's great for cable management. It's great for actually some other kinds of logical management too, because you can do it all in software now. But now you have to manage multiple tenancy of your actual data across different purposes. The convergence is good, right? Well, in most cases, yes. That's how we're getting a lot of the density raised in the data centers by combining those pathways. The important aspects of this technology to consider as a performance engineer is kind of what I've mentioned around, is that you're looking at those SAN times, the fiber. Most of this is all going to 10 gigabit fiber or higher on the convergence on the back panels. So you're looking at the same endpoint data, your SAN speeds, your network speeds, where are they all split out to, and how does that affect your application? Sometimes you've got partners inside your same cage sharing all that data, and what happens if you say you've got there's a good use case example. What happens when you have a claims organization doing a full backup, during either production or your actual performance test of, say, a commercial application that you're testing, and you're wondering why things are really, really slow? Well, they're all sharing that same data pipe, and even though it's big, it's enough to cause back-end issues for you. So then you're trying to figure out how do you actually test this and segment that out. But just something to keep in mind.
Hey, Pitar, this is Paul. So hey, just want to let everybody know we're up against the hour, but we're going to go ahead and continue for those who can hang on for a little bit. So
this one might be my last one.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
So I'll run through this one pretty quick. Artificial intelligence, machine learning. This, I feel, is one of the next steps actually to performance engineering, is where we have the data coming in from all of our tests and all of our monitoring systems, closing the loop through APM, and using that data in real time and for post-analysis to actually start creating performance signatures on the fly that us engineers can use as kind of like mini root cause and predictive analysis kind of pieces of data. Make things easier for us as well, and also come to quicker problem resolution. Why does this matter to the business? Because, like we said before, we're looking at helping with keeping brand erosion lower during outages. Revenue is king, and all that. So, and also customer retention. A lot of this stuff. So there's a use case there too. That's Pokemon Go. they're collecting a lot of data on us. Where we are GPS-wise, what time we were there, what we're collecting, looking at little social indicators and things. All that data based in metadata all gets analyzed, and it means things. So where do companies test launch new products? Where do new cell towers go up? All this stuff can be used to solve those kind of questions. And it's kind of I think it's just a natural progression to the data that we're collecting and using anyway. And then what's that next step? And how do we test this? Well, with AI models, it's kind of the same thing. We feed the data in from the actual performance tests, and also through looking at the production data. And the AI models will, in real time, push those out. The interesting piece here, though, is as a performance engineer creating that workload model for AI systems, it's pretty easy to just flood it with data and watch it do something really interesting on the back end. Sometimes it's fun just to feed these systems basically just really, really bad data and see what they recommend. That's one way to test it too. Now, I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you, Petar. We will move on to our final and fifth polling question. This one being, which is most critical to your performance engineering organization? We'll go ahead and open up the poll now. Please select one of these options. Again, we're going to cover the 5 topics here that Petar just rolled through. So again, what is most critical to your PE organization? Is it HTTP2? Is it network virtualization? Is it the Internet of Things, converged infrastructure, or artificial intelligence and machine learning? Please take the next 5 or 10 seconds to select one of these options and submit your vote so that we can have another 100% participation. With that, let's go ahead and close out this polling question, and we'll show the results.
Very nice.
Everyone should be able to see the results. So at 50% is the Internet of Things, then followed by 33% at converged infrastructure and 17% at HTTP2. No responses for network virtualization or artificial intelligence and machine learning. Paul, I will turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Todd. Todd, what are your thoughts on the results?
I guess from spending the amount of time I have lately on research and development of some of the new things coming out, I'd say it lines up pretty well with the state of, I guess, most organizations that are doing PE today. New things are coming. So I think those zeros around, well, the network virtualization one surprises me, actually, as being 0. The artificial intelligence one doesn't surprise me, because that's definitely coming. And Internet of Things is definitely hot. It's only going to get bigger as more and more things are connecting and sustaining that data flow. So we'll see where
hopefully
it goes.
The 0, yeah, hopefully the 0 for network virtualization means that everybody's doing it and that they're having no challenges with it whatsoever. All right, so we're going to move forward. Here's some helpful performance engineering community sites. I'm not going to walk through them in the interest of time. Here are our scheduled monthly meetings. Please share with your colleagues. We second Tuesday of every month, and everything, blogs, recordings, available online. For speakers, again, please, we're always looking for more folks to participate. Everyone come out and share their knowledge. We all benefit. And these will be the pieces in the slides that are on the site. HPE Discover Your Save the Date, November 29th, December 1st, London. Registration information is not out yet, but the upcoming. Questions? For a couple quick ones?
Paul, I think your audio is dropping. So Todd, can you please proceed and close this session?
Absolutely. So thank you all for your participation today. This has been a great session. I wanted to personally thank Tim, Tom, and Petar for your expertise, as well as Paul for putting this together and narrating the entire conversation. Any questions that you would have submitted, we will go ahead and take those and also make them available on the Vivint Worldwide website. If you wanted the quick link to learn more about the Performance Engineering Special Interest Group, you can see the bit.ly link here as well. On behalf of Vivint Worldwide, I would like to thank you all for your participation, and we will speak to you again soon. Thank you.